Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Familiar questions remain days after Memphis police released the video of an unarmed black man being beaten by officers. Good evening, I'm Maya Trabulsi. Tonight's coverage includes an update on the case, which brought new firings today. First, we have KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne in Escondido. She covered one of the many demonstrations seen over the weekend.
Justice advocates rallied outside of Escondido City Hall on Sunday to protest the deaths of Tyre Nichols in Memphis and Keenan Anderson in Los Angeles. Both were African-American men who died after encounters with police.
Another African-American has died at the hands of African-American officers, but we realize that it doesn't matter the race of the officer in the blue uniform. It matters that the uniform has a culture of abusing people of color, and that's what we're seeing.
Yusef Miller, the executive director of the North County Equity and Justice Coalition, helped organize the rally. He says the year is just beginning, and advocates find themselves joining forces once again over police brutality.
Whatever happened to cops peacefully handling situations? Whatever happened to cops protecting people? To imagine the pain that Tyre and Keenan went through is unimaginable.
3 years ago, Americans took to the streets by the millions protesting the death of George Floyd. 3 years later, we're in danger of becoming numb to the persistence of police brutality.
And I don't have the solution, but I know we have to admit there is a problem. And that problem is with our current justice system that has no justice, and our policing system and our public safety that does not work for everyone.
Although the officers involved in the Nichols case were fired, Miller says their certification should be revoked to prevent them from policing in a different department. He also says there needs to be an end to the qualified immunity that protects police officers from liability.
The law enforcement feels they have a armor on that cannot be penetrated. Once they fear for their career, they feel for their financial situation, then maybe they'll start changing some of their actions on the streets.
Over the weekend, police agencies across San Diego County released statements condemning what happened to Nichols. And the Peace Officers Research Association of California said changing and improving the profession is a process that takes years. PORAC President Brian Marvel says California has already started it by passing legislation designed to limit the use of force. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
And now to more of the national reaction to this case as another Memphis police officer is disciplined. Ivan Rodriguez has an update on the criminal charges and how this latest in-custody death might bring lasting change.
Get on the ground!
5 officers involved stand equally charged with 7 counts, including second-degree murder and aggravated kidnapping. But one legal expert says second degree is a gray area that could benefit the defense.
It takes an awareness that there is a just likelihood that you'd be reasonably certain that your conduct would result in somebody's death.
When the blows are as severe as they are, we're comfortable that we'll be able to prove that the defendants were reasonably certain, and that's really all that is required for a knowing killing, which is the relevant language for the second-degree murder statute.
A 6th officer has now been relieved from duty. The district attorney won't say whether the 6th Memphis officer will be charged. Nationally, there's bipartisan condemnation of the deadly encounter and a growing call for federal policing reform.
I mean, it's just difficult to watch. What strikes me is just a lack of respect for human life.
We need a national conversation about policing in a responsible, constitutional, and humane way.
Shame on us if we don't use his tragic death to finally get the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act passed.
Ivan Rodriguez, KPBS News.
The parents of Tyre Nichols will be invited guests at the State of the Union address. So will the young man who disarmed the mass shooter in Monterey Park. Over the weekend, the city of Alhambra awarded Brandon Tsai its Medal of Courage. He confronted the shooter at a second dance hall following the initial shooting in Monterey Park, where 11 people died. The invite comes directly from President Biden ahead of next week's speech before Congress. Now, this next story includes images that are hard to watch, especially for anyone with a pet. Even with increased awareness, unscrupulous backyard dog breeding is still a big problem. I investigated a doodle breeder who was able to operate on both sides of the U.S.-Mexican border despite allegations of dog abuse.
Yeah, this is our first baby.
Okay.
So this is Lizzie.
Hi, sweetheart. Are you scared? Oh, she's so scared.
And this is kind of how all of them were, to be honest.
Yeah. Lauren Botticelli runs the Animal Pad in La Mesa.
You're crazy.
One of several animal sanctuaries that took part in a harrowing rescue of more than 100 dogs from a backyard doodle breeder in Mexico.
Every kind of doodle breed you can think about was there.
Breeders in Mexico have an impact here because many of the dogs end up being sold in San Diego County.
And then we've got more back here.
Botticelli says this situation began with a plea for help on social media about a breeder who was in over her head.
Like no one knew where she was and who she was.
The breeder, Annette Rosenow, sent a geographical pin to her breeding facility in Rosarito, a beach town south of Tijuana.
When we pulled up, we actually saw it was like a hill of doodles. There were many, many more dogs than she had admitted to, essentially.
Once Botticelli saw the state of the compound and the dogs,
I kind of made it a mission to find out more about this woman.
The rescuers came over a series of visits, taking a few dogs each time. But only those Rosenow would allow, the ones she deemed weirdos.
Any of the dogs that were going to still make her money that she could profit off of, she wasn't willing to give up. We saw her throw rocks, throw buckets at the dogs.
Botticelli shared a video that shows Rosenow picking up a rock and throwing it at a pack of dogs. In another video, Rosenow is seen being handcuffed by Mexican municipal police after making serious threats at one of the rescuers.
You're gonna kill me?
While Rosenow was in custody, the teams got to work to remove the remaining dogs. But what they found will haunt them.
Annette told me this directly. They would be fighting over food to the point where they were killing each other. Any mom that was giving birth, the other dogs were eating the puppies.
That's a skull. Dog skulls were found on the property.
Look at this.
Several puppies in the freezer. And some dogs were defecating rocks, eaten out of hunger. This x-ray shows one of the pregnant dogs with rocks in her stomach. In one video, a rescuer climbs down a hole under the house where dogs had dug a cave, seemingly swallowing her entire body.
I don't know how he's been going to the bathroom.
Many of the dogs had to be sedated to remove the matted fur tearing their skin. At first, Rosenow agreed to an interview with KPBS, but then changed her mind. Instead, she has in recent weeks defended herself through text messages. She says the puppies in the freezer died of parvo, and that she has no felonies for animal abuse. She says she's being slandered by individuals and groups who have taken away her livelihood. Rosenow also said that she was detained by Mexican immigration authorities and says she's now in Germany. KPBS was not able to obtain records relating to her arrest or determine whether she was deported from Mexico. This isn't the first time Rosenow has run afoul of the law, and her activities haven't been limited to Mexico. For years, she ran breeding operations in the U.S. In 2017, the state of New Mexico charged Rosenow with 61 violations relating to license and rabies requirements. She pleaded guilty to 11 of the counts, fined and sentenced to 23 days in jail. And a magistrate judge ruled she cannot own animals anywhere in the United States. In 2018, 6 of Rosenow's dogs died in a hot car in Albuquerque after she says they were abandoned by the person she hired to transport them to Texas. Charges against Rosenow in that case were dismissed.
And I knew before you even said her name who it was.
Cindy Sullivan is director of Torrance County Animal Services in New Mexico, one of many counties Rosenow is known to have run her breeding business.
I have so many aliases on this woman. Annette Christine Sticks, Annette Friedrich, Christina Sticks, Holly Smith.
Sullivan is among many who say the problem with animal control in the U.S. is that breeders who are shut down in one jurisdiction can just move to another county or another state.
We work for weeks and months to try to stop these things from happening. And all it takes is for them to move into the next district.
There's no question we need a central database.
San Diego Humane Society CEO Dr. Gary Weitzman says breeders will continue to have an easy time evading law enforcement until there is a way to keep track of them on a national level.
Right now, it's very casual, and we have to rely on our own colleagues that are in our industry to actually translate what's happening in another region, and that just puts the animals at risk.
You know, I was just thrilled to be getting a puppy.
In 2020, Emily Hoyt bought one of the golden doodles that Rose now had transported across the border to a Chula Vista parking lot.
She sent me videos of the puppies. I really felt comfortable. She seemed very genuine.
She says Rose now seemed really caring to her clients, using her Facebook group of 2,700 members to connect puppy parents. Hoyt says she was responsive and followed up about the dog after the sale.
Looking back, there probably were some red flags that I overlooked, unfortunately. But in the moment, you know, a puppy is such an amazing thing. Here's a post of her promoting one of her litters, multi-generational mini golden doodles, ready January 7th, 2023.
The same litter that was found in these conditions in Mexico.
Here's another litter.
And now here at the animal pad. But there are many doodle buyers that bought a puppy from this backyard breeder and are happy with their adorable dogs.
I've told them their dogs are the luckiest ones, but also regret supporting somebody and supporting a situation where other dogs were being hurt in the process.
And Dr. Weitzman at the San Diego Humane Society says any transaction to sell a puppy or dog on public property is illegal in the state of California. For more information on what to look for in a good breeder, you can visit sdhumane.org/breeder. And you can find more of our KPBS investigations and feature reporting online, including the KPBS YouTube page. It's updated frequently throughout the day. That is where we also live stream KPBS Evening Edition weeknights at 5.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, we speak with the lawyer representing the family of Tyre Nichols, who died after being beaten by Memphis police. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
When UC grad student workers went on strike last month, it was for better pay and benefits. But that time on the picket lines might end up costing them. Union reps tell KPBS that the UC system wants to recoup money paid during the work stoppage. A UC spokesperson tells our news partner Cal Mounters that current law doesn't allow payment if services are not provided to the universities. Thousands of staff members are affected. Union members say they should be able to review the amount of money at stake, but say they are not being allowed to do so. Imperial Beach officials hope a recent infusion of federal money will help get the region's cross-border sewage flows under control this year. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson has details.
Congress recently approved a pair of measures that could help keep sewage-tainted water out of the ocean near Imperial Beach. Lawmakers boosted the amount of money in the Border Water Infrastructure Program, a fund that can pay for improvements on both sides of the border. Congressman Scott Peters says the entire San Diego congressional delegation backed the move, including Republican Darrell Issa.
He's in a better position to talk to other members of the Republican conference, particularly now that they're in the majority, than any of us Democrats is. So we love having Darrell on board here. We don't agree on everything, obviously, but we do a pretty good job of talking to each other and working together on local issues.
Congress also finally approved the transfer of $300 million from the EPA to the International Boundary and Water Commission. The IBWC can build the projects that the EPA calls for in its comprehensive $630 million plan to reduce sewage flows, something Imperial Beach residents are looking forward to.
It's going to mean a significant number of beach closure days that are being reduced.
The newly elected Imperial Beach mayor says residents know there will be contamination issues during wet weather, but IB beaches were closed last year, even when it was dry.
That's when those beach closures really kill us, because we shouldn't have beach closures. Last year we had a record number of beach closures, both during wet weather and dry weather months.
EPA officials hope construction begins this year on some of the major projects designed to capture and treat cross-border flows that currently reach the ocean. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
And we can expect another cold night after a day that brought winter weather to all parts of San Diego. Snow was still falling late this afternoon at the Laguna Mountain Lodge. This is a look from webcam around 4 p.m. Some smaller districts in those areas were closed today. A winter storm warning is in effect until tomorrow morning. Chains are required for those traveling to higher elevations in the local mountains.
Cold system making its way throughout the area will deliver some additional showers tonight. Some low snow levels, too. We will see some sunshine returning later on Tuesday with a gradual warming trend as we go throughout the week. But again, showers persisting here as we go into the overnight San Diego and some wet roads out there. So exercise caution if you are traveling out and about. Area-wide, we're going to open it up here because we are talking about snow around Mount Laguna. We're falling back into the 20s. Of course, Mount Laguna is sitting up over 5,700 feet. Those snow levels tonight dropping down below 4,000 and even around 3,500 feet. That brings to mind Interstate 8. Yeah, that's right. If you're traveling eastbound, get around Crestwood Summit, there's going to be snow toward the Cuyamaca Mountains. Again, they're going to be following the snow as it continues to fall around Mount Laguna. Again, Oceanside, San Diego, Chula Vista, all rain here. We're going to see this work its way west to east as we go throughout the late night into your Tuesday morning. Still looking at some winter storm warnings out toward Pine Valley, Mount Laguna. Again, I mentioned Interstate 8 around Crestwood Summit. Again, these go until early morning on Tuesday. Most of the snow, though, will be wrapping up later on tonight. As you can see here at Futurecast, look at the spin going on. There's your wet weather. And as the upper level low pivots its way to the east, it'll take precipitation with it. We'll see a drying trend, and we'll notice sunshine returning, but it will still be cool. And we'll talk about those temperatures coming up. But again, that wet weather and wintry weather will begin to advance its way off to the east. High temperature-wise, we'll be up to 61 in San Diego for tomorrow. Still cold one in Mount Laguna, only topping off at 33. As we go into Wednesday, gradually we'll start to warm things back up. Here's a look at those temperatures then. You can see a subtle change in mid-60s toward the coast, but sunshine as we work our way into late week. Over the interior valleys, warmer Tuesday, and then we're peaking here late week into the weekend, upper 60s to right around 70 by Saturday. We talk about some mountainous locations, very cold snow tonight, tapering off Tuesday west to east, and a gradual warming trend as we go into Friday and Saturday. Still cool over the desert. Now we're looking at temperatures back into the 70s by Friday and Saturday. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Pavic.
Veterans in immediate suicidal crisis can now receive free emergency care wherever they are. KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman spoke with Veterans Affairs officials who say the goal here is reducing barriers to treatment.
We want to provide care to any veteran who's in need at any time where they need it and when they need it.
Nilufar Afari is Associate Chief of Staff for Mental Health at VA San Diego. She says thanks to the Compact Act, veterans experiencing acute suicidal crisis can now go to any hospital's emergency room, whether that be at the VA or otherwise, without having to worry about a bill.
Really, the intent here isn't to do anything different clinically. The intent is to be able to provide the clinical services for suicidal care without a cost to the veteran.
Veterans don't have to be enrolled in the VA system to be covered. It's estimated that alone will provide this emergency care to an additional 9 million former service members. Afari says it's all about improving access to services.
Removing the barrier of having to pay for something that might prevent some folks from reaching out, whether at the VA or in the community. You know, what if I get a bill? What if I'm not eligible for these health care benefits and I go to the VA and now I have to pay for it?
Afari says those experiencing a suicidal crisis who seek help outside of the VA system should be letting hospitals know that they are veterans. And if they do end up getting a bill, bring it to the VA to be taken care of. Veterans can also access up to 90 days of no-cost outpatient treatment.
Yeah, I think it's a huge game changer. California is a huge state, and it's not just in California that this is going to impact.
Kelly Williams is director of the Cohen Military Family Veteran Clinic in San Diego. They're one of the local providers who could be tapped for the continuing outpatient care.
This will really help us because we focus on overall mental health. So we provide services of therapy, psychiatry, case management.
Anyone experiencing thoughts of suicide can dial 988 to access the Suicide and Crisis Line. The service is available 24 hours a day. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Last year brought the end of low interest rates, forcing anyone with a credit card bill to pay a bit more. And as Cole Higgins reports, it's looking like that trend will continue in 2023.
Good afternoon.
The first Fed meeting of 2023 gets underway this week, and economists expect the Federal Reserve to raise interest rates again Wednesday, marking the 8th increase in a row. Economists predict a smaller increase than in the past, likely a quarter point.
And then a 25 basis point hike in March, bringing the policy range to between 5 and 5.25%.
Economist Joe Brusuelas expects hikes to continue at least through March. This week's meeting is a critical one. Economists say it should give us some insight into the Fed's policy plans for the rest of the year, as the Fed aims to slow down the overheated economy and ultimately bring down historic inflation.
If you're out there and you're living paycheck to paycheck, the best I can offer you here is that the worst is behind this.
But economists say before we see prices moderate, the Fed's move will likely deepen the economic pain for millions of American businesses and households by pushing the cost of borrowing even higher for credit cards, car loans, and mortgages. Economist Mark Zandi says the hardest hit sector could be the housing market.
Most people, when they need to buy a home, they got to go get a mortgage, and that is tied right into to interest rates.
And then there's also concerns the Fed's repeated hikes could trigger a recession. But Goldman Sachs says that's unlikely.
We don't expect a recession. Our baseline view is that we're going through a period of below trend growth.
For Consumer Watch, I'm Cole Higgins.
It's the biggest day of the year for sports, entertainment, and advertising, and now the matchup is set. The Eagles and Chiefs are advancing to the big game after wins on Championship Sunday.
Second and goal, and it off. Sanders walks in, touchdown, Eagles.
From 45 yards, all the way, it's good.
Philadelphia cruised against the 49ers. Kansas City won on a field goal at the end of their game against the Bengals. Like most Super Bowls, there will be some firsts this year, including the first Super Bowl to feature 2 African-American starting quarterbacks. It's also the first time 2 brothers will face off on opposing teams. And this year's Super Bowl will be played February 12th in Glendale, Arizona, and that is about a 6-hour drive from San Diego. Ticket prices on resale sites are already pushing $10,000. It's that sweet season once again. We're talking Samoas, tagalongs, Thin Mints. Yes, it's Girl Scout cookie time. And as KPBS reporter Melissa May tells us, this year there are plenty to go around.
They're back. Girl Scout cookies are now on sale in San Diego and Imperial counties. And the Girl Scouts say there's no supply shortage like last year.
Well, everybody loves the Girl Scout cookie. It's been a fan favorite and a long-term tradition that has inspired the public to support Girl Scouts. I grew up as a Girl Scout. I grew up in Michigan. My mom was my troop leader.
Carol Dietrich is the CEO of Girl Scouts San Diego and says the proceeds from the cookie program help fund other programs like their camps, community projects, and even their STEM program. The San Diego Council launched a very special community service project back in 2002. It's a way the Girl Scouts could connect the community to the military stationed overseas.
Operation Thin Mint came out of an idea of how do we connect the largest program that we have with community service and supporting our military. So all of it came together, and voila, we have Operation Thin Mint.
Dietrich is an Army veteran. She was a captain and officer during Desert Storm and did 5 years on active duty and about 10 years in the reserves. She knows how important it is to get a care package from home.
It is just so heartfelt and loving and supportive, knowing that we are reaching them when they're away from their families and they can feel a taste of home.
One Girl Scout who is extra passionate about Operation Thin Mint is Grace Bell. Grace has been a Girl Scout for 7 years and has a dad who served in the Navy.
It means a lot. He was really, really happy when he got the cookies on the ship.
Grace's dad kept and posted one of the messages he received from Operation Thin Mint during his deployment.
My dad's favorite one that he got said, "I don't know what you do, but I hope you're really good at it."
Belle hopes to sell 3,000 boxes of cookies this year and has a simple message of her own to send to the troops.
Thank you for serving our country.
Currently, Operation Thin Mint has sent 3.8 million boxes of cookies to our military overseas, and Girl Scouts San Diego hopes to reach 4 million during this year's cookie program that runs through March 12th. The Operation Thin Mint send-off is on April 14th. Melissa May, KPBS News.
And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. Who gets what when it comes to water from the Colorado River? NPR's Morning Edition is talking about the recent deal on water cutbacks affecting 7 states and millions of people. And KPBS Midday Edition has a preview of the Human Rights Film Festival starting later this week in San Diego. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.